It's time to get our Marvel fix in because Black Panther Wakanda Forever is out in theaters, and I went to go see it. We're going to be talking breakdown, review, and then some character breakdowns for what they're like in the comics. But before I get into it, welcome to NonStopAntonio, where I talk about everything nerdy. If you like content just like this, hit the subscribe button for more, and I hope you enjoy this video. Overall, Black Panther Wakanda Forever was probably one of the best movies in Phase 4. My top 3 are Shang-Chi, Spider-Man No Way Home, and Black Panther in no particular order. I thought this movie did a decent job with dealing with what they had because Chadwick passed away right as they finished writing the script, so that meant they had to go back and change a bunch of stuff, which you could kind of see with some of the writing choices based in this movie. However, I still think they did a great job with what they were able to do, really showing the emotion of the characters dealing with T'Challa's death. However, I didn't really pay as much attention to some of the writing aspects to this because I was more focused on the new character introduction, because I thought they did a great job changing up the Namor character and how he is from the comics, and I actually really like his character and where it's going. I'm looking forward to finding out more in the future with this character and where it's going to be revolved around, and if maybe he'll get his own movie or own series to kind of divulge into his culture a little bit more. Also, the introduction of Riri Williams was great. I was kind of worried because it's a little different from what the comics did, but I think we'll see a lot of her normal comic origin stuff within her own series, which I am really looking forward to now because I think the actress did a great job and she felt like Riri Williams. Like all Marvel movies, this had a bunch of jokes in it, but I think it fit well with some of the tone, but of course there was still the odd joke here and there that kind of felt out of place. And on top of all that, there were some surprising characters that appeared in this movie, which I did not expect to see. And I thought it added some interesting points to the movie, but I'll talk about that in more spoilers afterwards. And lastly, of course, the movie visually looked good. I thought all the CG looked amazing compared to some other stuff that's been a little bit more questionable with the TV series. This actually looked really good. And always, Wakanda looks absolutely amazing with all their future tech. And honestly, I could not ask for a better movie to get me through my Marvel fix. Now all we have to do is wait till Guardians of the Galaxy. But let's jump into the breakdown for the movie. So we start off the movie with a new logo for T'Challa's death. It's a silent intro of the Marvel logo with only shots of T'Challa, which I thought was really touching and it hit right in the feels, really reminding us of T'Challa and who he was. The movie starts off really quickly with like everything kind of in a full panic because T'Challa is dying, and I thought they were going to kill T'Challa off with a fight in with Namor, or he was going to die fighting someone else. I didn't think he was going to die from an illness. However, he had an illness that he was hiding that was not able to be cured by Wakanda. And it's kind of similar to the real life how Chadwick was dying of cancer and no one knew about it because he kept it hidden. He kept working through it all. Because the way they made it seem is that T'Challa died soon after Endgame ended. Because during this, they also reference that it's been 6 years since the battle with Thanos. So I can only assume that this movie takes place a year after the blip, which means T'Challa died really soon after they all came back, because then we take a 1-year time jump to where the time is currently, which I'm still kind of curious to where all the Marvel projects fit in the goddamn timeline right now. It's kind of a mess. We also find out that Shuri's been trying to make a synthetic heart-shaped herb so that she could cure T'Challa. However, she's not able to do that and T'Challa dies. The funeral for T'Challa was pretty sad, kind of showing how, you know, Ramonda and Shuri are dealing with the loss, and you can really see it in their acting. Their eyes are very saddened. And you can see everyone else celebrating the life of T'Challa while the queen and the princess taking the death of their loved one. And there's so much death in this movie, and it really hit you. And because of the death, there's a lot of ramifications for the world. I thought it was really interesting that Wakanda kind of pulled out of everything. They didn't want to interact with the world. They didn't want to help them anymore because T'Challa was that one that really reached out. He opened the outreach centers, and he was the one trying to opening up Wakanda to the world. However, Ramonda doesn't want to do that, and she just backs out of it. She doesn't want to deal with it. She's already lost her son. She's lost her husband. She's not having it anymore. And even the world is trying to get the vibranium by attacking other outposts and trying to steal it from them, and then having the Dora Milaje kick all their asses while they fail to do so, which really setting up tensions between Wakanda and the outside world, with people wanting to get the vibranium. Because the vibranium is such a strong metal, everyone wants it, and you can only imagine what governments would do with it if they had a weapon that powerful. We find out that there's more vibranium within this world, because it seemingly has a meteorite that landed in Wakanda and then one that landed in the Atlantic Ocean, which sets up the Atlanteans, which are actually from a city called Talocan, which I guess we could call them Talocans, but I'm not 100% sure about that. Because the United States government, of course, has a device that's able to find vibranium, which leads them to the middle of the ocean, and then they end up getting their asses absolutely clapped by the Talocans. But as we make our way through this movie, We see that Shuri's really forcing herself into her work. A year after T'Challa's death, she's just been trying to make stuff, make tech, help them get upgraded because Black Panther is a relic and her tech could be the future. She makes Okoye a new suit, which honestly looks so bad. I did not like it in the final fight. It looks like the Predator suit, but in blue. The introduction to Namor with the Wakandas were pretty interesting because you had Shuri and Ramonda on the beach. Ramonda's trying to let go, finish her mourning phase, but Shuri doesn't want to do it. Namor just appears out of nowhere, gets through all their defenses, and they're completely shook because they're like, how the hell does this man get through it? And he just appeared out of the water? He wants them to find the person who built the vibranium detector that the United States was using, which ends up being Riri Williams. I thought that was a cool way to tie her into the story, that she was the one that made a device that the people were actually able to detect vibranium. She's a genius. She's going to be able to do that. But this led to a pretty interesting storyline because Namor wants to kill her. So if he wants the Wakandans to help him track her down, then give them to her so that everybody can be at peace. No one has any kind of technology that can find vibranium, and everyone can be left alone. But of course, as soon as Shuri and Okoye find that it's just a young girl, they're not going to let her die. They're going to make sure they try to save her at all costs, which led us to some pretty cool stuff because we got Everett Ross telling them about Riri Williams, and we find out later that Everett Ross, his wife, was Val, which tying us to more Thunderbolts because Val is the director of the CIA now. She's a lot more powerful than we thought she was. She ends up bugging Ross and finding out that he's been working with the Wakandans, and he gets arrested for treason. However, I thought this was pretty interesting because you got Val who wants the vibranium because obviously sinister reasons, and she wants the United States government to have it so that they can be powerful. And I feel like this is going to tie into Thunderbolts in a way where, you know, she's going to start appearing in all these different movies, kind of being that government organization that's up in the head, watching over everyone. And she's going to use her Black Ops group she has to try to get more vibranium. That's what I think is going to happen. I think it's going to be interesting to see that. But let's get back to Riri Williams. She's at college. She has her own garage where she's building all her tech. She has a prototype Iron Man suit with an arc reactor. It's not really a suit per se, but more like an exoskeleton, which looks really cool. I like the design for like a very, very basic prototype suit. And I like how when she finds out that the police are after them and they're all surrounded, she burns the blueprints because no way in hell anyone's getting that. Which I think this is also a tie back to the stolen Stark tech from No Way Home because she has blueprints for Stark tech. Where did she get those from? She either stole them off someone else or she got them from Stark before he died. But I doubt that. I think it's more of the fact that she probably got them off someone after the Stark tech was stolen. When Shuri, Okoye, and Riri have to escape from the cops, I like how one of them yells, "Oh my god, she has an Iron Man suit!" Because as she flies away, we got a cool driving scene with Okoye using her spirit to kind of turn the car, and Shuri riding the motorcycle like a badass, which just was a cool chasing overall with Riri also taking out the drone flying too high where she runs out of oxygen, kind of like how Iron Man did. Pretty cool though. Then Riri gets slammed to the ground by the Talokans because they go after her because they want to take out the scientist who built the machine. And I like how this led to Okoye fighting Attuma, which was a pretty interesting fight because you got this really jacked, big creature that they've never seen before versing Okoye. And she's able to hold her own. She's kicking their asses until she gets taken out and gets thrown off the bridge. And I like when they all show up too because they ride in on an orca and I think it was a humpback. I love seeing all the whales in this. And that was our first introduction to Attuma and Namora, which in the comics, Attuma is a barbarian warlord, which is part of a tribe that was exiled from Atlantis. Then Namora, with the daughter of an Atlantean male and a surface woman, and she's the cousin of Namor. Shuri and Riri were brought to an underwater cave, and then after talking to Namor for a little bit, she gets brought to their underwater city, which looked freaking awesome. And we see more about Namor too. We find out his origin in this film, where his mother and her people were sick with smallpox, so they drank this herb that was growing underwater, which ended up turning them into these sea people. And they had to go into the water to be able to breathe. And when he was born as a mutant. He had pointy ears, wings on his feet, and I think this is also the first time we've actually heard mutant once again. So we got another mutant in the MCU because technically in the comics, he's been called the first mutant. Kind of like Apocalypse. In this, I'm not 100% sure if he's still a mutant, but they did say the words mutant, so I'm going to say he is. This is obviously a change from the comics because, well, in the comics, he was still born a mutant hybrid son. However, his mother was already an Atlantean princess and his father was a human one. So it's a little different, but I think it's still pretty cool to see Namor in the MCU, and I do like this change It gives him a little bit more culture, and I think it gives more to his story as well. And I like how he tries to recruit Shuri to be allies. He wants to take down the surface world for all the shit they've done to his people, because he also feels that with the surface world still out there, his people are never going to be safe, especially when they're trying to find the vibranium that he has in his city. However, he gets distracted by the queen, and then Nakia goes and saves Shuri and Riri, which ends up leading to a couple of Namor's people getting killed, and that's starting an all-out war, which Namor just absolutely decimates Wakanda and floods it and just takes people out like no tomorrow. He killed the queen in the end after drowning the palace and almost killing Riri as well, but Ramonda saves Riri at the last second to make sure that she doesn't die, and now Shuri has no family left, which was pretty devastating to watch, that she had to have 2 funerals for her family members in the same movie. Which, of course, we have to have this huge hero moment now. Her family's dead. She wants revenge. She's got to take him out. And ends up making an artificial heart-shaped herb, which gives her the Black Panther powers in the end. And we had Riri building her suit, which, by the way, I don't like it. I don't like the way her suit looks in this. It looks kind of like something out of Voltron, and I just wasn't a fan. When Riri takes the heart-shaped herb, she goes to the astral plane, but not the one we've seen before. No, she goes to the palace that's drowned, and she sees the one and only Killmonger. Honestly, did not expect to see this character in this movie at all, which really shows that all she wants is revenge. She wants to take Namor out for what he did to her mother. And during all this, you can really see that Killmonger knows what she wants. The only reason that he's there is because she has darkness in her and she wants the revenge that she needs. And she felt like her ancestors abandoned her as well because she didn't see them. She only saw Killmonger. And when she got her suit too afterwards, she felt like she didn't get her powers at first. When she was getting angry, she punched something and just sent it flying across the room. And at first, too, I thought when she said she couldn't feel anything, she didn't have the powers because in the comics, she was rejected by the Panther God and didn't get the Black Panther powers. So I thought that's what was going on, but that wasn't the case. She got her Black Panther suit, which had gold in it, and the first thing I thought was like, oh, that's kind of similar to Killmonger, kind of paralleling who he was and where he was going. Then we lead to that giant final fight, which was a little anticlimactic, except for the Namor versus Black Panther fight. Because in the end, like almost all the Wakandans they took with them to fight died. Only the Dora Milaje and a bunch of M'Baku's people seemed to survive, and Nakia, which was a little bit of too close one because Namor's people just overpowered them. There was just so many. They're throwing their water bombs and everything. Riri's flying around and then she almost gets taken out. Koya using her suit and flying around, taking them out. The fight with Shuri versus Namor was pretty brutal because while they're fighting, she tries to drain him of all his water because then he's weaker and prevents him from absorbing it, brings him to a desert. Even though he's next to the water, he's still fighting her instead of going to refresh. She cuts off one of his wings on his foot. She burns him. And with the thrusters from her ship, I was like, holy shit, this is brutal. He stabbed her through the stomach with one of his spears. She's still able to walk after that, which was kind of shocking. But the moment before she was able to kill him, she goes and sees her mother in the astral plane and realizes that she can't kill him. Because if she does, it's not going to fix anything. She's going to be consumed by this vengeance. And she even says that him and her are both consumed by vengeance and they can't let their people also be consumed, which is really interesting because you have 2 large nations who need to come together. So she offers an alliance, and the only reason Namor takes it is because if anything happens to Wakanda right now, because they have no allies, they're going to go to Talocan for help, and that Namor's going to get his wish. The surface world is going to get destroyed because of this all-out war. He wins in either situation. Wakanda gets a new ally, but he also gets the ally that he knows will have to go to war eventually, and he will get the world being destroyed as he wanted. It sets up interesting future stuff for Namor and the Wakandans, and I'm really interested to seeing what happens and when the hell they'll show up next. Honestly, I can't see any MCU projects coming up anytime soon that either of those people will fit into. So I guess we'll see. Maybe we won't find out anything out till Secret Wars. I feel like a lot of the movies aren't really connecting together anymore, and they will eventually. There's nothing sequel-wise that'll kind of lead some of these stories, and we have to wait forever to get them. However, by the end of the movie, Shuri finally is able to move on and mourn her family's deaths, and that's where it ends, and she can start a new beginning. Which, overall, again, this movie was really interesting, and I like where it went. Some stuff could have been done better, but I did like the new introduction of Namor and Riri Williams, and bringing Val more into the fold. We also got to talk about that mid-credit scene that I almost forgot about it because it had a huge reveal as well, because Nakia comes onto the beach to show that she has a son, and that son is none other than T'Challa, the son of T'Challa. We have the Prince of Wakanda. Had zero idea this was going to happen. I've heard rumors about her having a kid. However, I didn't think she was actually going to have a kid, and I am completely shocked that now Black Panther has a kid. So almost all the Avengers, the older ones anyways, that seem to be being replaced now, have kids. Just another young Avenger to add to the roster, even though I don't think he'll be a young Avenger. He's too young. T'Challa has a kid. Did not see that coming. I was still hoping for like a post-credit scene to introduce us to like another nation or set up something more with like Namor or Wakandans. However, we didn't get anything, but I'm sure that's to come. A lot of people theorized that Doom was going to show up, and that would have made sense, have him go to Wakanda or try to go after Talokan to get Vibranium, but that didn't happen. I feel like there was a lot in this movie, kind of setting up new lore, setting up new cultural stuff, and kind of setting up new characters as we go forward, bringing in Talokan in the underwater world for the Marvel Universe, as other movies brings in more outer space, brings into more dimensions. Now we got the Earth itself, we got the water part of it, which I am really intrigued to find out more about the MCU. It's growing bigger and bigger and bigger every movie, which is like a comic book, giving us all these different realms, cities, countries, to really look at and explore. What did you think of Black Panther Wakanda Forever? What kind of Easter eggs and details you saw that I might have missed? Because I am very interested, because I only know so much of the Black Panther character, and I always love learning more about these comic characters. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hit the subscribe button for more, because I will always be talking about Marvel and DC. Thanks again for watching, and I'll talk to you all later.